wow. So it's a simple tool, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. And anybody can do this. We're going to go really slow with one tiny. I know we've got lots of different denominations here, so it's all good. Nobody understands it perfectly, and nobody's got it perfectly right. So we're all learning and all students of the word. So this is my Princess Bride meme. And this is what I found when I started verse mapping, that we were using all these words in our Christianese language. And I really didn't understand what a lot of them meant. We use words like saved, believe, sin, lost, hell, revival, praise, repentance. And so when I started verse mapping and getting into the original languages, I realized that it didn't mean what I thought it meant. So I always like to share that. And this is the verse from Acts 17:11 that has kind of become like my life verse. Now the Bereans were of more noble character, for they received the message with great eagerness and examined the scriptures every day to see if what Paul said was true. So that's what I have endeavored to do through verse mapping is if somebody tells you something, or if you hear a message, then you have the knowledge at your fingertips to go and look directly into the word. Because of all of our technical stuff we can do now, you can go look at exactly what the original word meant. So that is what we're going to do. So first, we are going to go with the shortest verse in the Bible. Everybody know what that is? Whatever verse that you are familiar with, out of whichever Bible you're comfortable reading. So you're going to copy that verse onto your paper, and we'll do that in just a second. And you're going to copy that in like a black or a blue or like a neutral ink. Graph paper is cool if you have it. If not, it's totally fine. And then your colored pens and highlighters are very helpful to add in the definitions and things as we go along. All right, so what you're going to do, we're going to do the verse, John 11:35. And everybody knows that verse, Jesus wept. So you will Google, just go to whatever search engine you have and search for John 11:35. So do that now. And then when you see your results come up, you're going to pick the one that says Bible Hub. Choose that Bible Hub choice there and click on that. And then what's going to come up for this verse, John 11:35, is over here on the right-hand side. You're going to get all of these different translations and how they translated that one verse, which is a very amazing tool just right there in itself. There it is. It's going to look like that when you Google it. Bible Hub does have an app. I'm not going to do it today. You can do that later. It's just easier to go into it this way. So you should be at this page. Again, you've got all these translations, and then you've got some cross references over there. All right. The first thing we need to talk about is, if you're new to Bible study, then you need to know that the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew, and the New Testament was originally written in Greek. And then we'll talk about the Septuagint a little bit, where the Old Testament was translated by Hebrews into Greek. So that's a helpful tool as well. So now you need to find your little button on that grayish white bar at the top that says Greek. Okay, it looks different on different devices. So it might be, if you're on your phone, you might see it. That little bar slides, that little grayish white bar slides back and forth till you find GRK. So then you got to the left here. When you click on that word, the little Greek button, click on that, and you're going to see the whole verse pulled up with the English translations, the Greek word, and then your Strong's number is on the left-hand side. So Strong's is your, it was done in, what does it say, 1890. It's an exhaustive concordance of all of the words that were used in the King James Version of the Bible. And it also uses the ancient languages and their definitions, the Hebrew, the Aramaic, and the Chaldee. So we want to go all the way back, or as far as the way back as we can, to get to the original language. So now what we're going to do we're going to look up each word individually by clicking on that Strong's number to the left. And then we're going to read through the original definition of that word to get a better understanding of it. And then we're going to record these new definitions on your paper. Now, I forgot. Go back here and on your paper, do this.
Mhm.
So get your graph paper or your just notebook paper and write this part. Just write it big or however, leave lots of space in between the words so that you can make notes all around it. Okay, so back to where we were. You're going to click on that Strong's number.
Mhm.
And then it's going to pull this up. So you should be looking at this screen.
Mhm.
And this is that word. We're doing wept because it comes first in that sentence. In Greek and Hebrew, their sentence structure is different. So it just looks different. So the word wept, and that's your Strong's number, 1145. Dakruo. You could just, dakruo, yeah. And what does that mean?
Says here to weep.
To weep. I shed tears or weep. And then if you look at the Hebrew or the Helps word studies, what does that tell us? It goes a little bit more in depth.
To weep silently.
Yes.
Mm.
To shed quiet, actual tears.
Mhm.
And it also comes, it tells us that it comes from the root word 1144, daiquiri. You can click on that if you want to. So now what I want you to do is on your paper, go back to your paper and write down as much information as you want to write down. I write down the Strong's number. I write down the regular little definition, and then I write down as much as I want to pull out of that definition to help me get a word picture of what we're talking about. So like this is what I wrote down on my paper. I wrote the Strong's number, the Greek word, and you'll be surprised how much Greek and Hebrew you will learn from doing this. And it meant to weep or shed tears, or to shed quiet, actual tears, to weep silently with tears. That already, I mean, I already have a different picture of like who imagined Jesus crying silently. This doesn't even like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so then when you scroll on down on that same definition, you'll see that it says from dakruon. Okay, and you can click on that as well. And then when you get to dakruon, it will tell you that's a primitive word. So there's your root, and it means a teardrop. So you can add that to your verse map paper too, that it's from 1144. You see how these numbers go in order because your words are all connected in Hebrew and Greek. So that comes from the word that means teardrop. So now when you get to this point, just hit your back button, because if you try to just click other things, it kind of goes all over the place. So hit your back button until you get back to the page that has the 3 words on it in the verse. Like this. Okay, so now we're just going to do the next word, which is obviously Jesus. That little word in the middle we'll do in just a second. It's a tiny little word. Sometimes the tiny little words mean big things. So this one, click on 2424. Let me go back to where we are here. And so this is the name. It says Jesus. And the definition is Jesus or Joshua, the name of the Messiah. And you go on down to help word studies there. Just read down and pick up things. So Jesus is the transliteration of the Hebrew term 3091, Jehoshua, which got contracted to Joshua, which means Yahweh saves, or Yahweh is salvation. Okay, so write down on your verse map things from that you want to remember. Then you can also click on this 3091, because this Greek word is coming directly from 3091. That's a Hebrew word. So click on your 3091 Strong's number in blue there. And then you get the Hebrew word that it came from. Again, Yehoshua, and it means the Lord is salvation. And then you can go even further. So you see down here under the exhaustive concordance, the word origin is from Yod He Vav He and Yasha. So just keep going. Click on Yod He Vav He in the blue. And you've got the Yod He Vav He, the divine name that God gave to Moses on the mountain. And then Yasha means to deliver or bring salvation. Isn't that so cool? Man, the first time I saw that, like, I was in a service and they were singing the Joshua Aaron song, "The Salvation is Your Name." And I'm singing it and I'm like, wait a minute. That's his name. Like literally, that is his name. Just to throw this in here, some of you may know the letter J was invented for the Italian language by a man called Giorgio Stracino. I don't know if I said that right. In the year 1524, and it says here before the letter J, Jesus' name was pronounced Jesus, which we know that's not correct because his name was the English form of Joshua. So it was literally Yehoshua. Then they made a distinction between it in the King James Bible. There, that one says down at the bottom. When he was alive, the letter J did not exist, and his name was Yeshua. This name is the same place that we get the name Joshua from, which is awesome too, because Joshua led them into the promised land. Okay, so how does your paper look? That's what mine looks like. Okay, the little word there, hope, is usually the word the. It does say in this one that proper names sometimes have this article and sometimes are anarthrous, and the article is marked as so the person is either well known or already mentioned. So it would, if you literally said the Jesus wept, but it was pointed to a well-known person or somebody that had been previously mentioned. Could have been either in this case. All right, so this is what my whole verse map looks like. Okay, so then the last step, what we would do is you take your verse and your expanded definition and write out the verse again with those definitions included in there. And so you have like your own amplified version of scripture. Rewrite the entire verse with your expanded definitions. So this is what I wrote. Jesus, Joshua, Yehoshua, Yeshua, meaning Yod He Vav He saves, or Yahweh that brings salvation, wept. He shed quiet, actual tears, or wept silently with tears. And everybody knows this story, I know. Of course, we want to get the context. The verse before that says, and he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." Because they're talking about Lazarus has died. And the verse after, and then the Jews said, "See how he loves him." So here, Jesus or Yeshua is weeping, and the Jews say, "See how he loved Lazarus." Okay. All right, now we're going to do one more. So get a clean sheet of paper and quickly copy this onto your paper. You see how I did it here? Leave lots of space between your words and between your lines. so that you can go back and put your definitions in there. Okay, I'll give you just a second to do that. I need some Jeopardy music. You can back out on your Bible Hub and use the little arrows to go to the left to get to that verse, or you can start over with a Google search and start with John 11:33, just like we did the first time. And again, you can copy that verse out of whatever version you're used to reading. And then when you have it copied, just go ahead and find your little GRK button and click that. So that you should be at John 11:33 and then have all of the words down below with the Strong's number. So we are not going to verse map this whole entire verse. We're going to take 4 words out of here. When I verse map, usually I do every word in the verse. And that's what I was saying. You'll just get to know Greek and Hebrew because you're going to use the same words over and over, and you kind of get to know them. So I'm going to read the context here, and you can read along with me. Now, Jesus had not yet come into the town, but was in the place where Martha met him. And then the Jews who were with her in the house and comforting her, when they saw that Mary rose up quickly and went out, followed her, saying, "She is going to the tomb to weep there." Can you just imagine this whole scenario, okay? And then when Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her were weeping, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. And then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." Okay? Got the whole picture? All right, so we want to click on the Strong's number to the left of the first weeping word in this verse. This number, do you see it there? Click on that. And we've got klaio. To weep, I weep for, I mourn, lament. And then look at your help word studies there. What does it say?
I found it says to weep aloud, expressing uncontainable audible grief.
There you go. So what's this? Is this Strong's number the same number as in Jesus wept?
No.
No. This is a different weeping. This is the, if you know anything about Jewish culture, weeping was the highest form of respect or loving your neighbor. And you wept because the other person was weeping. And the louder you wept, the more you loved that person, or the more you reverenced that person. So, and if you were like a rich person, then you would pay as many mourners as you could to weep loudly at your funeral. Okay. So that's why these Jews are there. And Mary's crying, and they're all crying. And what kind of crying are they doing? They're not shedding quiet, actual tears. They're weeping aloud and expressing uncontainable, audible grief. Oh, like this is loud. So Mary gets up and leaves the room, and they all suddenly stop crying, and they're following her. Oh, she's going to the tomb to weep there. Okay, let's all follow her. And the mourners are all following her to the tomb so they can weep loudly there, right? Okay, so I just wrote that down there, that it said weep, mourn, lament, properly to weep aloud. So your second word, now the Jews are also weeping with her. How are they weeping?
Same
word, right? So you can or you don't have to write that whole thing again. You can just draw a circle with the same color or arrows. Same word. So then we already pointed out that this is the other weeping in Jesus weeping was a different type of weeping. So I just wrote that over there. All right, so now we're going to do, this is the word groaned. I think one version said was troubled in his spirit, or is that what yours says?
Mhm.
Okay, so look up that word, or click on the Strong's next to that word. Mine says he was deeply moved. Brim amahi.
Snort. No.
Sorry.
To be moved with anger, to admonish sternly.
Yep, and keep going.
It says, I snort. I like that. Express indignant displeasure with someone. Charge
Yes.
sternly. Then you go down. I like the snort thing. Snort like an angry horse. An angry
Right.
horse. To sternly admonish.
Mm-hmm. So is this how you pictured Jesus? I mean, it wasn't to me.
No.
I mean, he's mad. I think if you go, to snort, all the way down at the exhaustive concordance, I think it was, to snort with anger. That's literally what it means.
Mine says to be moved with anger.
To be moved with anger. So write down what you need to there on your paper about the word groaned or was moved. And then hit your back button, and we've got one more word. He was deeply moved in spirit, and then he was also troubled. What's that Greek word? Tarasso? And the definition is to stir up or to trouble. I disturb, agitate, stir up trouble. On your help word studies, it says properly to put in motion, to agitate back and forth, or to shake to and fro. So you can see there what I pulled out of that and wrote down. Remember, there's no wrong answer. Write down what jumps out at you. This was in the commentary. There's a little button across the top that's for commentary. And again, it's going to look different on everybody's phones and devices, but it says commentary. Find that, and you can just read and read and read. And this was just another commentary. The Cambridge commentary said he was angered in the spirit. The word translated as groaned occurs 5 times in the New Testament here. In all cases, as in classical Greek and in the LXX, it expresses not sorrow, but indignation or severity. It means literally of animals to snort or growl, or metaphorically to be very angry or indignant. All right, so let's read it now with more expanded meaning. Does somebody want to read verse 33 with their definitions in it?
Okay, so if you go back to what we did for John 11:35, we can start with Jesus, which means Yahweh saves, or Yahshua. The Lord is salvation, whose proper name Yud-Heh-Vav-Weh, and to deliver Yasha. Therefore saw her weeping aloud, expressing uncontainable audible grief, mourn, and lamentation, and the Jews also weeping aloud, expressing uncontainable audible grief, mourning, and lamentation, which came with her. He snorted with anger to express indignant displeasure, which was snorting like an angry horse, in the spirit, and was stirred up to trouble, was agitated back and forth, to set in motion, causing inner perplexity.
Yeah. That's quite a bit more context than just everybody was crying. You know? I love it. So we're going to read this. Let's read this together, okay? So here comes Jesus. Therefore, having come, Jesus found him already having been 4 days in the tomb. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 15 stadia away, and many of the Jews had come unto Martha and Mary that they might console them concerning the brother. Therefore Martha, when she heard that Jesus is coming, met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Nevertheless, even now I know that whatever you might ask, God will give you. And Jesus says to her, your brother will rise again. And Martha says to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection in the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one believing in me, even if he should die, he will live. And everyone living and believing in me shall never die to the age. Do you believe this? And she says to him, yes, Lord, I have believed that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. And having said these things, she went away and called her sister Mary secretly, having said, the teacher is come, and he calls you. And she, when she heard, rose up quickly and was coming to him. Now we're to where we were. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. And then the Jews being with her in the house and consoling her, here they are weeping all audibly. Having seen that Mary rose up quickly and went out, they followed her, having supposed she is going to the tomb that she might weep there. Therefore Mary, when she came to where Jesus was, having seen him, fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Therefore Jesus, when he saw her weeping, and the Jews having come with her weeping, was what? Was he deeply moved in his spirit?
To anger.
Yeah. He snorted with indignation and was agitated back and forth. Maybe he was shaking his head like, and he said, where have you laid him? And they say to him, Lord, come and see. And now Jesus wept. Why was he weeping? Well, the Jews said, they saw him weeping and said, oh, behold how he loves him. But is that why he was weeping?
It was deeper.
Well, up here, Mary is crying and all the Jews are crying. And he is mad because they don't, their belief is so shallow.
Shallow.
Which
Mhm.
we could all be guilty of that.
True.
Because he's already told her, your brother will rise again. And she's like, I know, he's going to rise in the resurrection in the last day. And he says, no, I am the resurrection. So then he's going through this whole thing, and then here's everybody crying and weeping again, and he's just getting irritated with them because they don't see. And then when they all come out there weeping, and then he just says, where have you laid him? So they come and see, and then he's weeping, crying silent, actual tears, because he's so sad that they don't fully believe. And of course, then if we go on, the Jews are saying, oh, look how we loved him. But some of them said, was not this the man having opened the eyes of the blind able to have caused that this one also should not have died? So look, so Jesus, mine says, being moved in him, deeply moved in himself again. What was he? What would you put there?
Angry.
Ticked off.
He was angry.
Yeah. So Jesus, irritated and snorting like a horse again, comes to the tomb. Now it was a cave and a stone was lying against it, and Jesus says, take away the stone. I mean, he's mad. Just, okay, move the stone, you people. And Martha, the sister of one having died, says to him, Lord, he stinks already, for it's 4 days. And Jesus says to her, did I not say to you that if you should believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted his eyes upwards and said, Father, I love this part. Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you always hear me, but I said it on account of the crowd standing around, that they might believe that you sent me. And having said these things, he cried out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And the one having been dead came forth, the feet and hands being bound with linen strips, and his face about with a, mine says, what is that? Saudarian? And Jesus says to them, unbind him and let him go. So you can feel that when you get into the words, you can feel all of that frustration that he's experiencing there. Isn't that cool? Any thoughts?
Very cool.
Comments?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
You know, it takes you back to Jairus, whose daughter died before they got there. And
Right.
he goes in there and all the mourners are in there making a big hoopla, 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 you know, oh, whoa, whoa, and crying and lamenting loudly. And he tells them they're asleep, and they go from crying and lamenting to laughing at him,
Right.
you know,
I'm sure that made him mad.
and then he threw them all out of the house.
Right. You have
And
to
then
go
he
look
took
into
them
that one. See if
I'm curious to look
he's
at,
there anywhere.
yeah, because he threw them out of the house, and then he went up there and grabbed her hand, and he said, get up, and oh, by the way, give her some food.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I don't know.
See, and I always thought he wept.
His friend died.
Right.
But it
That's what I was taught. I mean, in church, that's what you're taught, that he was very sad because
Wow.
his friend died.
That just changes everything.
Yeah. Changes the whole story. Okay. So you feel pretty good about how to do it?
Yes, that's cool.
Okay, I'm gonna give you homework. So I want you to, and you can go crazy with this now that you know how to do it. Just go verse map every verse you've ever wondered about. But for next week, verse map Philippians 4:13. Everybody knows that one, and you've heard it so much that it doesn't mean anything to you anymore. Probably, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Right?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna go do my homework.
Yes, so do your homework. All right, you all have a blessed week and enjoy verse mapping.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks, Kim.
Shalom.
Bye.